back. Hope has returned. No one questions where he's been, no one asks what his absence cost. And to be honest, I've always found this a little strange. Again, I get that it's a kids show, but you'd think after 100 years of war, after everything people have lost, there'd be at least a few characters' stories that are technically unrelated. The emotions underneath them are nearly identical. Guilt, shame, isolation. Both of them shaped by forces they couldn't control. Both of them carrying scars they're still trying to outrun. And what makes it even smarter is the way the show struck.
What's up, everyone? I hope you have a blessed day. I'm gonna have a banger video for you of one of my favorite shows of all time. I love it, you love it, and I think the overall world of fiction appreciates it. And it's going to be none other than Avatar: The Last Airbender, a series we've done multiple times on this channel already. And that's one of the things about Avatar, no matter how many years it's been, no matter how many videos I watch about it, and how many rewatches, there's always something new to learn with every time someone does a video. And this video today, what I have for you, is no different. This is the moment Avatar: The Last Airbender became a masterpiece. Let's get straight to the video.
20 years. That's how long it's been since Avatar: The Last Airbender first aired. And yet, despite the last 2 decades of rewatching and analysis and scrutiny, this remains, in my opinion, an absolute masterpiece. It's one of those very rare pieces of art where everything just seemed to fall into place. The world building, the character arcs, the humor, the emotional depth, the voice acting, the music. Amazing. The list of what Avatar: The Last Airbender does well is basically endless. It is a true masterclass in storytelling, a nuanced but powerful show which reveals new layers of depth and meaning every time you revisit it, which I try to do every 1 or 2 years. But if we're being honest, Avatar didn't start out this way. In fact, I've struggled in the past to introduce people to this show, because sure, while those early episodes of season 1 are charming, they can definitely be a bit of a slog to get through for some people. The tone is bouncier, the stakes feel lighter, and yeah, they're fun to watch. I'll always have good memories of seeing Aang tame the Unagi, but they definitely have that Nickelodeon energy, and they don't exactly scream, this is one of the greatest animated stories ever told. And yet, as every—
Very true. Season 1, obviously, if you grew up in the 2000s like me, I watched this as it was live, day by day, as it used to run Monday to Friday in the UK, 6 p.m. on Nicktoons. Season 1 was good, season 2 got better, but season 3 is a masterpiece. And I do love watching season 3 hungover. It's just so good. But season 1 is a bit of it's a little bit of a stretch.
Fan knows, Avatar doesn't stay this way for long. No, it grows, it matures, and it eventually becomes this genuinely moving epic about war, and hope, and redemption. Yes, there are jokes and childish moments throughout, there always will be. But much like Aang himself, the show finds this beautiful balance between lightness and real, often painful emotional depth. Which raises the question, when exactly does Avatar transition from being a solid kids show to something much more? What is the precise moment Avatar: The Last Airbender becomes the masterpiece we all know it as today? Well, I think there are a few episodes you could feasibly point to. Some people might say it's the Winter Solstice 2-parter, when the spiritual mythology really starts to unfold. Others might point to The Deserter, with its surprisingly heavy themes of discipline and responsibility. Maybe it's when the story reaches the Northern Water Tribe and the scale of the world properly opens up. Or if you're a little more patient, maybe you think it's not until season 2, when Azula steps onto the stage, or when Toph joins the group and the show's final form really starts to take shape. But for me, the real shift, the moment Avatar: The Last Airbender becomes a masterpiece, happens much earlier, in season 1, episode 12, The Storm. Like I've already said, the first 11 episodes of Avatar: The Last Airbender.
Very true. I think people definitively say this is one of the first major turning points in the entire series, and I think I've had to agree as well. Growing up when I was like 7, I hated this episode because obviously it was a bit deeper, darker, not as fun and vibrant, not as many jokes, but when you grow and mature, you really start to appreciate the deeper layers this episode really had for the series, and it truly is a very, very important episode, if not top 5 most important episodes in terms of dramatic and tonal shift of the series, world building, and just understanding characters in a way we've never seen them before. It's truly it's truly an important episode.
Are not bad by any means. In fact, when compared to most other animated shows, they're pretty solid. Episodes such as the Southern Air Temple, the Waterbending Scroll, and the Winter Solstice 2-parter lay essential bricks in the show's foundation, building the world, deepening the characters, and quietly setting up a much larger story. However, when compared to what Avatar: The Last Airbender would eventually become, the first half of Book 1 does have its shortcomings. There's an overtly Adventure of the Week vibe running through these early episodes, light, breezy side quests that, while charming and often laying important groundwork, still feel a little juvenile. And of course, this makes sense. Avatar originally aired on Nickelodeon and was aimed primarily at kids. kids. But while there's still undoubtedly heart in these episodes, there's just not always a ton of weight. And this is especially true when you look at the two episodes that immediately precede the storm, Jet
Great
and The Great Divide. Now look, I wouldn't go as far as to call an episode like Jet bad. It's an interesting enough character piece, which does a decent job at teasing some of the moral grey areas the show will explore with much more depth and nuance later on. However, when you step back and look at the plot, a group of ragtag teenagers launching guerrilla strikes against entire Fire Nation battalions, it does all feel a little childish and silly, especially when you throw in the very surface level romance subplot between Jet and Katara. And then there's The Great Divide, which is basically unanimously agreed upon by the Avatar fanbase to be the worst episode of the entire show. Perhaps the only bad episode of the entire show, due to just how inconsequential and instantly forgettable it is. Hell, even the creators of Avatar The Last Airbender, Brian Konietzko and Michael Dante DiMartino, have jokingly disowned The Great Divide, which you've got to say is pretty funny. Together, these episodes really embody that lighter, young adult energy of early Avatar. And maybe this is why the tonal whiplash of The Storm hits as hard as it does. It's the moment the show stops playing around. Like the writers suddenly realized one day that they were already halfway through the first season and should probably start showing everyone what this seemingly simple story was truly capable of. The emotional complexity of The Storm and its status as a turning point in the show are evident from the very first scene. We open not with a joke or a quirky side quest, but with a nightmare, Aang floating in this dreamlike void. The music is cold and otherworldly. Katara and Sokka appear at his side, his new points of comfort, his found family, but they vanish just as quickly. They can't help him here. Then comes Monk Gyatso. He asks why Aang disappeared before crumbling into ash. A haunting moment made even more powerful by the brilliant animation. We even witness a few frames of Fire Lord Ozai's towering silhouette right before Aang wakes up. Now remember, at this point in the series, we barely know anything about Aang's past, but we don't need context to feel the weight of what he's seeing here. It's a nightmare about fear. Fear of the past he ran from, and a destiny he's still not quite ready to face. It's not exposition, it's not setup, it's guilt, it's trauma, and with it, Avatar quietly signals that it's about to start digging a little deeper. Anyway, while Aang wrestles with guilt in his dreams, a different kind of commotion is brewing aboard Zuko's ship. There's not a cloud in the sky, but Uncle Iroh, with that quiet wisdom of his, can feel a storm brewing. The atmosphere here is tense and claustrophobic. Zuko snaps at his crew, who mutter resentfully behind his back. He's not some noble prince. He's just a scarred teenager, obsessed, reckless, isolated. And yet, even here, the storm plants the seeds of something deeper. Zuko isn't cruel for cruelty's sake. He's frustrated, desperate, alone. For now, though, none of that matters. They can't outrun what's coming. Not in the sky, and not inside themselves. Meanwhile, team looking for supplies and work. Now, up until this point in the story, every character who meets Aang has treated him the same way, with the same kind of awe and blind reverence. You know, the Avatar is back, hope has returned. No one questions where he's been, no one asks what his absence cost. And to be honest, I've always found this a little strange. Again, I get that it's a kids show, but you'd think after 100 years of war, after everything people have lost, there'd be at least a few characters who didn't exactly greet him with open arms. And this is why I love the fisherman who Aang meets here. He actually might be one of the best single episode characters the show ever had, because he's not blindly celebrating the Avatar's return. No, he's angry, bitter. He looks at Aang not as a hero, but a failure. It's a rare moment of realism, where the emotions match the messy, complicated world the story is actually set in. And the way Aang reacts, not with anger, but with guilt, tells us everything. Even without knowing the full story yet, we can feel that Aang has been carrying something heavy, something unspoken, ever since he woke up from that iceberg. It's the first real crack in the playful, adventurous image of the boy monk we've seen so far. Eventually, Aang flies off. Katara follows him, and it's at this point that the storm splits into two parallel stories, Aang's past and Zuko's past, cutting between them with rhythmic precision. And it's such a smart choice, because even though the two stories are technically unrelated, the emotions underneath them are nearly identical. Guilt, shame, isolation. Both of them shaped by forces they couldn't control. Both of them carrying scars they're still trying to outrun. And what makes it even smarter is the way the show structures these two stories. Both Aang and Zuko's pasts are told around fires, one in a cave, one on a ship. And the episode cleverly fades between them. Aang is finally opening up to Katara, while Iroh explains Zuko's history to the ship's crew, who up until now have only seen him as this angry, one-note figure, perhaps just like us, the audience. It's simple visual storytelling, but it works beautifully. Aang's story starts first. Sitting in the cave, he tells Katara about his life at the Southern Air Temple.
Notice how it's
a life
all
of freedom
bright
and community and play. The memories are bright and warm, with this soft white sheen that gives them a slightly idealized, nostalgic feel. But there's also this deep sense of sadness running underneath them. We learn that the monks revealed to Aang that he was the Avatar far earlier than tradition would dictate, out of fear that war was coming and that the world would soon need him. And after this reveal, everything changes for Aang. The other kids at the temple treat him differently. The monks treat him differently. He's no longer just another airbender. He's something else now, something bigger. And this is all made painfully clear when Aang overhears the monks.
The monks treating him like the elders. I can't lie. I feel like the elders get a little bit of stick to it. But in terms of the sake of peace for the world and the elders' responsibilities, I think it was fair enough for them. But I can't respect the friends, because if your friend was telling us that they have this massive responsibility, surely true friends would actually like support them no matter what. This is what I'll even say. Even someone like Sozin with Roku, Sozin still treated Roku the exact same way, which is the reasons why Roku had a deep connection with Sozin and spared him. Here, Aang's friends completely, literally disassociate with and abandon him. It's like, it's very peak, and I can't respect the friends for that. The elders, I feel, get way too much stick, but the friends, they're the ones who actually deserve all their hate.
Debating whether to take him away from Monk Gyatso, the only true parental figure he has. This is the true breaking point. The Fire Nation might be the distant threat, but in this moment it's the people Aang trusts, his own community, who make him feel more isolated than ever. And faced with that,
Isolation.
he runs, not out of selfishness, not out of
The
cowardice,
silent
but because
killer.
he's a scared kid, and for the first time in his life, he feels completely alone. Meanwhile, back on the ship, Zuko's story unfolds. And just like Aang's, it's not the story of a great fall from power, it's the story of a boy being crushed by expectations he didn't choose. Through Iroh's explanation to the crew, we see a young, scarless Zuko, eager to impress, stepping into a Fire Nation war meeting. He speaks out impulsively, objecting to a plan that would sacrifice the lives of new recruits. But Zuko isn't punished because he's wrong. He's punished because he speaks out of turn, challenging the rigid hierarchy of the Fire Nation's military culture. The real emotional blow comes when Zuko is forced into an Agni Kai, and learns too late that his opponent is not the war general he interrupted, but his own father. When he begs for mercy, he's met not with understanding, but with violence. Ozai burns him without hesitation and banishes him in shame. The scar, of course, is the most visible consequence, but what lingers far deeper is the emotional
I'm not gonna lie.
the internalized belief.
One thing I've always thought about the situation is, as Zuko, bro, just fight. You know what I mean? Like, it is what it is. At that point, you just have to stand on business and defend your beliefs. This whole bound down, I understand it, but as one tweak I would say about Zuko's character, which kind of makes no sense. And obviously, the live action, I think, does say that he fights for a little bit. And I actually do prefer that, because stand and fight and prove your ideals, prove yourself to be in the right, has always been part of the culture. So it shouldn't really make a difference who he's fighting. As long as if you're standing for what you believe into, you can always stand and fight proudly, irrespective of who's against you, irrespective of the person in front of you. As long as you stand true to yourself and your beliefs, the person you're fighting shouldn't really matter. Which is one thing I would say in terms of the live action, I personally think does better, because Zuko ultimately giving up, I can't respect that. But him fighting this a little bit, that I dislike. And in the live action, it's almost a case that Ozai is disappointed that Zuko doesn't carry on. And it's more he's more banished for cowardice rather than his belief. And I personally believe that is true, but banishment is still over the top if we're completely real.
Speaking out, showing compassion, even hesitating in the face of cruelty, will only ever lead to rejection and pain. Both Aang and Zuko are, in their own ways, exiled. Aang cast adrift from his people by fear and expectation, encased in ice for 100 years. Zuko banished by his father for showing a flicker of humanity in a system built to crush it. And the Storm is careful not to overstate these parallels. There's no heavy narration telling the viewer what to think. Instead, the structure, the mirrored fires, the matching sequences of shame and exile, invites the audience to draw the connections themselves. Both boys are burdened by expectations that they never asked for. Both are trapped by choices they had no real power to make. And both are now adrift, carrying the consequences of those moments on their shoulders. This dual structure doesn't just deepen our understanding of Aang and Zuko individually, it transforms the emotional stakes of the show itself. Because, think about it, before this point we didn't really know these two people that well. Sure, we knew the surface details. Aang was the fun-loving, carefree kid with a hidden burden. Zuko was the angry, brooding villain chasing him across the world. But that was about it. Their real histories, the weight that they were carrying, the reasons they behaved the way they did, had been left mostly unspoken. The Storm changes all of that. The episode ends with Aang risking his life to save the fisherman who cursed him, and Zuko risking his life to save the crew who doubted him. Two acts of compassion, two moments of redemption, or at least the beginning of one. And then, in the middle of the chaos, it happens.
Good point.
As Aang and Appa fly through the storm, carrying everyone to safety, Zuko looks up from the deck of his ship and sees him. Their eyes meet for a brief moment across the sky. There's no dialogue, no conflict. For all their differences, are carrying a really similar weight. And for me, this is the moment Avatar: The Last Airbender becomes a masterpiece. What the Storm does so effectively is recalibrate our understanding of the story we're watching. From this point on, Avatar: The Last Airbender is no longer just a well-made adventure series with a strong premise. It's a story about trauma, identity, and the burden of expectation. About what it means to carry guilt, to question your place in the world, to be shaped by choices you didn't fully make. And the thing is, even when the show returns to lighter, more episodic storytelling, and it does, there's now something deeper running underneath. Every joke, every village visit, every skirmish with a low-level Fire Nation soldier carries the echo of what these characters have been through. Furthermore, the Storm sets the emotional foundation for what is, in my opinion, the most important narrative thread in the entire series, the connection between Aang and Zuko. The hero and the antagonist, the monk and the prince. Their stories don't just run parallel, they kind of bend towards each other. And that moment across the sky, that brief look in the middle of the storm, is the first time we really feel that. The first time we sense that this isn't just about balance between elements or nations, it's about balance between people, between paths not taken, between who you were and who you could still become. And that, my friends, is going to be it for now. If you're interested in hearing more of my thoughts on this beautiful show, I actually made a 96-minute video reviewing and ranking every episode from season 1. It's probably my personal favorite video I've ever made, so if you want to check that out, the link's in the description. Otherwise, thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a great day.
What's not to love about the show Avatar: The Last Airbender? I've seen so many reviews, retrospectives, reactions regarding this one episode, and it is so true. how everything just works together this episode, the exposition, the flashback, the history, the world building. It's so many layers to this episode, what makes it such a great storytelling experience. When I'm watching fiction, I'm not a fan of the backstories kind of thing, but this episode really taught me the importance and how much weight and life and actual depth it can bring to a series. Because if without this episode, every other part of the interactions doesn't hold as much substance or meaning behind it. But with in context with this on this lesson, this episode we are now able to understand the characters, and the beauty about these characters is one of those situations where we, the audience, knows more than the characters know about each other. So we're having our own kind of like third person perspective. So we're understander, but it's just waiting for the realization for them to understand each other, which creates an added level of anticipation and a hope that these two characters will finally be able to understand each other, which obviously culminates to the amazing episode of the Southern Air Temple when they're finally able to kind of make peace with themselves and understand each other, which obviously adds on to the whole, which flows into the Fire to the Sun Warriors episode as well. This is a critical part which really starts laying the foundation of whether it's this episode from this episode, the storm, to the episode when to the next episode with the Blue Spirit episode, which is the next episode after this one, to the Zuko alone backstory, which adds to the episode where Lake Lao guy when Zuko lets Appa go. It all is building up for them slowly but surely coming to understand each other, and then coming at an intersection to like, this person is like me, this person is me, and that's just great amazing story where things aren't forced but things naturally align together, so these characters make sense why they're working together, as not just shoehorned in because it'll be cool seeing, oh, the villain and hero finally team up. But no, it's been a steadily crafted story where these two fated individuals are which are effectively connected together and they're becoming joined together, which is obviously I missed out the whole episode of the f- the episodes, the season 3 episode with the other flashback of Roku's history. Yeah, it's just an amazing story, and this is definitely one of the first pieces to the puzzle of uniting everyone together. And I love it. But I've spoken a lot. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Obviously, I love Avatar, and I'll always do series about it, episodes about it, and if you guys want me to do more, definitely give me suggestions. I'm always willing to do more and more episodes of Avatar. I love this series. This and Yu-Gi-Oh! Encapsulate my childhood better than more at any other shows, and I love it to bits. But that's been me. Thank you for watching. Until next time.